just did an interview yesterday, Desta and I, with Sixto Wells, who, how many people know who he is? He's probably one of the most famous experiencers or contactees in the world. He started the Rama group in 1974. I had my sightings in 1975, and he has, it's like CE5s, but it's on steroids. And you know, CE5s where they go out and they can sort of try to bring in UFOs. What the CE5 thing does, or what the Mission Rama does, is they have what are called antennas. And this is what Desta and other people can do, is people who have the ability to send and receive, I think you can do it as well, where you're sending and receiving. And so what they do is they use meditation, they use fasting, and what they call the antennas will get a message. And the way it started was 1974, Sixto Paz and his brother Charles Paz Wells. Sixto started to do automatic writing. He had gone to a course that his father was teaching and came home and he wanted to practice this, and he was with his sister and his mother, and suddenly he started doing this automatic writing, and then he said, well, you know, he'll stop that. But he told his friends, and he said next day there's 20 of his friends in the house. He said, do it again, do it again, do it again. So he did it again, he did this automatic writing, and they were talking to an alien. So then one of the kids said, well, if you're an alien, how do we know you're an alien and not just Sixto's crazy? And so then that's when the automatic writing said Saturday night there will be what they call a program sighting. We're going to appear on Saturday night at 8 o'clock. And so what happened with our experience when we were at Shasta last August is 2 antennas said there'd be a program sighting. First I was told there'd be a program sighting. It comes on Desta's cell phone, we're coming through the desert, and there's a message from an alien, Antarel, who says, I'm aware the ground's coming to a mountain. Saturday night there will be a program sighting. So this announcement. Then 2 of the antennas pick up, it's going to be 9:33 that this event's going to take place. So we're sitting there at 9:33, and all of a sudden there's a laser above my head, and you look up and there's this flash. And somebody had seen there's a flash before, and it was right above me. And the funny thing was, my first thought was, this is going to sound real egotistical when I tell this story, because it looks like it's right above my head. I'm looking straight up at this thing. And then I'm thinking, no, it can't be above my head. It's got to be above the group. It's got to be above Mount Shasta. It just looks like it's above my head. And I look up again, and then it flashed again. I go, no, it's right above my head. And then the other thing I was thinking is, and I'll get into this because what happened is they have, with program sightings, sometimes they open what's called the zendra. And we would call it portals, but they have a very specific thing with what are called zendras, where they open this interdimensional gateway where they make this bubble. And it'll either be a fog type thing. If I had my video thing, I could actually show you a video of one in Uruguay where it looks like sort of like a rainbow, but like a fog thing. And people can go in this, and they can go to other worlds. They go to Ganymede, and there's an alien in the Zendra. So when this thing happened over my head, I was thinking to myself, that's all you can do? Because I knew they'd opened 2 Zendras in 14 and 15. And when I heard there would be a program sighting, because Paula Harris was the one that went through 2014, 2015. So what they do is they want to show off what I called, when I did the lecture in Laughlin, I called it the circus and the message. And the idea that if you have, like Jesus Christ, who walks on water, heals people, rises from the dead, raises Lazarus from the dead, all this kind of stuff. If Jesus Christ hadn't done all the circus stuff, nobody would be talking about him today. So there's the circus, so they do the circus and everybody gets all excited, and then they give you the message. So when I saw this thing over my head, I'm thinking, that's the best you could do? I'm thinking, where's the Zendra? Like, this flashing lights, I mean, that's, because when I had my sighting in 1975, it was like right in front of the car. It was like not a light in the sky, it was an object that flew right in front of the car. So I had seen stuff up close. The first 2 I had were pretty close. So I'm thinking, that's the best you can do, and then when if I'm going to report it like to here, everybody's going to be thinking, the guy saw a satellite. That's just a satellite. And so I went and did all the analysis, and they have satellites that are called, things I didn't realize is that people will say satellites, but most people don't know, and I didn't know until I actually researched this story, that after an hour after sunset, there are no satellites. You don't see satellites, because the sun's on the other side of the earth, unless it's somehow going through the earth and lighting up the satellite, because the satellite doesn't have any lights on it. It's only reflecting light off the sun. So once the sun goes down, an hour after it goes down, those things are in the shadow, all the satellites in the shadow. So it wasn't an ordinary satellite, but it was flashing. So it flashed about 8 times in 30 seconds. And the one was huge, I missed it. But everybody's clearing, there's about 130 people in the circle, and they're all cheering away and stuff. But it was so far above me that I had to keep leaning back. And then I'm thinking, it could be, I started doing the research. So it wasn't a satellite. And then there was this, what they call iridium satellites, which they can actually predict. It's almost like a, say an eclipse, where it has a certain orbit, it's going exactly the right orbit, and they have these panels where the sun hits the panel, but they can tell you to the minute or to the second exactly. You'll be sitting in the sky and they'll say at 9:33, there's going to be a flash, because the satellite's going to come and it's going to hit off the panel. But these are on a chart where you can actually look on the chart and you can actually determine. So I looked, and there was 2 iridium flashes that day, and they were not even close to the time. And this had 8 flashes. So it's not a iridium satellite, because the iridium satellite, it'll only flash one time. It'll be a very bright flash in the sky, but it'll only flash one time. This was about 8 flashes. And so what I was waiting for is what's called these zendras. And to tell you what it was, I should say after. This is where the whole thing about the antenna comes from. So the guy that's running this thing, his name is Ricardo Gonzalez. So Ricardo is sitting there, and Desta's sitting on one side, and I have one of my other associates is sitting beside me on this side, and then next is Ricardo, and it's like we're up on the side of a mountain. There's almost no moon. It's like black. It's like you can't see your hand in front of your face. And so everybody's sitting there, and all of a sudden his wife takes the cell phone, or Ricardo says, there's a message from Aunt Terrell. So then he goes and he sits, so there's a girl sitting here, and then he's sitting there. And I'm watching, it has this little tiny black book, it looks like a little diary, opens up the thing, and his wife's got the cell phone to light up the page, and it's like, you see his hand going, and he's writing away, and I'm like, holy. And I had camera, because I'd filmed a lot of people, and I'll tell you what that in a minute. I'd filmed these people, but I saw his hand going, and I said to Desta, do you see that? And I'm going, where's my camera, man? I would film this thing, it would just be unbelievable. And then turn the page, and again, and on this side of the page, and then he started going sort of sideways, and he's going sideways, and then I said to Desta, he's going sort of sideways, and she said, it's probably the way he's holding the book, and I'm thinking, no, he's going sideways. And then all of a sudden, he's going up and down the page, he's writing like this, up and down the page, and turn the page, and go like this, and then he closes the book, and he sits there. And the book's open again, and he's writing again, and I'm watching him going like, this is just fascinating, because I knew about automatic writing, and I knew the Canadian government had, the guy who originally ran the Canadian government program, his name was Wilbert Smith. He ran the program from 50 to 54, and he was a contactee. He would go to bed at night, and he would put a pad beside his bed, and in the morning he'd wake up, all the stuff be written down, and he was dealing with an alien by the name of Alpha. So he would wake up, and Alpha's been busy last night, and they would give him all the instructions how to build radio communication so you could communicate with the aliens, and what was called a gravity control experiment, where you could actually control gravity. And this was a major government scientist or an engineer. And so I knew that automatic writing, what it was. I'd seen, he had a woman in Elliott, Maine, who had actually taught the CIA how to channel. And the CIA, if you look at, there's a documentary called UFOs, It Has Begun. And it's on YouTube, you can watch it. And in that documentary, they show they tell the story of this woman teaching a Navy intelligence guy how to channel, how to do the automatic writing, and she just puts her hand on his shoulder, and suddenly he's able to do this automatic writing, and he gets all excited, and he works for the CIA, he goes racing back to Washington, and they go into this room, and this is all told on this documentary by the head of Project Blue Book, the former president, head of Project Blue Book for the government. So this is not some story people made up. This is the guy who was brought in after they brought him in and said, you got to see this, you got to see. So he flew him from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but he tells the story of this guy sitting there, and his Adam's apples moving up and down, and the guy said it was the most dramatic thing he'd ever seen. And they asked the alien all these questions, and he's answering them, and then they said, well, we want some proof. And then the guy goes from automatic writing to voice, and he says, what do you want? And then this head CIA guy says, we'd like you to show yourself. And then the guy goes, when? And he said, now. He said, go to the window. And they go to the window, and on this documentary you'll see he goes to the window, and apparently this flying saucer during the day flew by and over top of the Capitol in Washington, D.C. So I knew about this automatic writing, so Ricardo's doing this automatic writing, and then he reads the message out, and it has me in the message. It says, we knew he'd come, and even though he didn't see us, he would see us in the future, and he'll put the pieces together. And then they had this thing about this light was going to, what would be the term?
Activate
The DNA, or activate,
Yeah.
that this light was activating stuff in us. And so what they do in this circle is they sit there, it's almost like this, except there's 130 people in 2 rows, and people are meditating, and they're trying to raise the vibration of the group. And this allows them to open this zendra, or to come and interact with this thing. So people are all sort of chanting. And so in 2014, 2015, they opened Zendras. And I had Paula Harris, who's a very prominent researcher out of Boulder, Colorado. I heard that she'd been in this Zendra thing, or she'd seen an alien. I heard she'd seen an alien. So we were in Los Angeles. I said, you saw an alien? And she said, yeah, I was in this. And she describes this whole experience and stuff. And I said, really? She said, yeah, he was about 10 feet tall, and there's 2 other beings, and all this sort of stuff. And I said, well, you gotta tell people. She said, no, I'm not talking about it. She says, I don't want to be the center of attention. I don't want to tell this. I said, oh, you're a prominent researcher. It would help people to know if Paula Harris said she saw a being, that's going to help everybody else, because everybody else is, trying to find some sort of proof that this is for real. So she said, no, I don't want to. And then she actually went public with it. So she told the story. And then 2015 happens again. She doesn't want to go in 2015. She said, no, I've seen that. I've done that. And what happens is she's in Crestone. She lives in Boulder. She's in Crestone, Colorado. And she's with this guy, this Ricardo Gonzalez, who runs this group. And is sort of the guy who leads people to get the vibration up and open the Zendra. So she's in Crestone, Colorado in 2015. And they're praying at this stupa, or they're meditating at this stupa, and all of a sudden this UFO appears, and Ricardo goes, okay, if that's you, Antarell, I want you to move to the left, and he puts the pointer, and he goes, just jumps like that, and he said, wow, it just instantly moved from one spot to another, and then put it back, and the thing went back. And so then he's having a meeting with Paula, and he says to Paula, he did the automatic writing thing again, and in the automatic writing said Paula should come to Mount Shasta again, that Antarell still wanted to talk to her. And she said, no, I'm not going, I don't want to be the center of attention, and I'm busy, I'm running a conference. So she doesn't go. And then Tom Hamblin, this story is that Tom Hamblin, suddenly his phone starts phoning Paula Harris 30 to 40 times. We did the interview, Justice heard this bizarre interview that's almost like science fiction, as he goes for an hour as to his involvement. He wasn't even 100% involved, but he was sort of involved. And his phone starts dealing with Paula Harris, and Paula Harris said, how come you kept phoning me? How come you keep phoning me all week? And he said, I'm not phoning you. The phone dials itself. He said, I'm looking at it. The phone is dialing, and it keeps dialing Paula. And so they realize, and then Paula hears that the Antarell message, which she was there and she doesn't remember it, was that she's to go to Mount Shasta. So suddenly they pick up and they race to Mount Shasta in 2015, and she goes through the Zendra again. So the Zendra is like a portal, but I'll describe it in a second. So 2014, this is what happens. Everybody says, oh, Paula wants to make money, Paula wants to be a contactee, all this sort of stuff. Paula absolutely wanted nothing to do with this whatsoever. So what they do is they have a group like this, and everybody's meditating, and everybody's oming and stuff, and they're trying to raise the vibration, and there's this program sighting. Everybody knows there's going to be at a certain time, and the exact sighting they normally don't give. But we were told 9 to 10. One of the antennas that we talked to, she's a psychologist, her husband's a neurologist, is sitting right behind us. She's a PhD psychologist who from Uruguay now lives in Montana, and she's sitting there, and so this event happens, this flashing event happens. But in 2014, they're raising the vibration, and Paula, and what they do, I think they had if you've ever been to this site, it's called the Sand Flats. They built a giant, huge peace symbol out of rocks, and so everybody was going around gathering a rock in the dark. So you gather this rock, and then you had to go put it in this peace circle to sort of build a peace circle up. So Paula's gathering her rock, And what happened is, because they had 6 people who had predicted, and when I'm writing this up, I've actually got the 6 people and what they said. There was 6 people who actually predicted they're going to open a Zendra. They got the message, a Zendra will open. And when we were talking to Sixto Wells yesterday, he said that the way these antenna things work is, it's not good enough for, say, Mickey to get a message. If she just gets a message, it doesn't mean anything. But if she gets a message, Desta gets a message, you get a message. And this is what happened. They had 6 people all got the same message. So they know there's going to be a Zendra open. So what happens is there's a program sighting, the UFO was flying by, and it sort of goes to the bush, and everybody's watching this thing, and this is really cool. And people know, was it a UFO, is it a plane, or whatever, but it goes over, and a couple of them take off, because they know that the prediction is there's a Zendra. So they head for the forest in the dark, and there's this Raimundo guy, and if you go, I have a YouTube site called Whitehouse UFO, and I have all the extended interviews, because I go around with a movie camera, and I interview all these people. So Raimundo is one of he's seen Antarell about 5 times, and he goes, him and Ricardo know there's this Zendra prediction by 6 people. So they go into the forest looking for this Zendra, where it all lights up, the forest lights up, and Antarell's there. And Raimundo actually finds him, and he sees there's a 10-foot tall being standing there, Antarell. So he goes to Ricardo, he's here, I found him, he's in the forest. So then they go back and they say, okay, he wants to see Paula, let's go get Paula. So they go back to Paula, and Paula's sitting in her chair and oming and meditating with everybody else, whatever. And then Ricardo comes up and he says, Antarell is in the forest. He wants you to go in. Are you ready? And Paula just freaks out. She, as they say, she just locks up. I can't do this. And they put a coat on her, she's freezing, and she's shaking, and somebody's holding her, and across they go, and it's maybe a third of a mile walk across this sort of sand flat to the edge of the forest, where they already know Antarell's there. They know Antarell's in the forest. So when I go there this year, this is how I get dragged into this, and it's bizarre. You see these synchronicity stories. I just released a book called Charlie Redstar. And the Charlie Redstar book, I tried to publish it in the 1970s. Nobody wanted to publish it. And it was all about the sightings, and they were very simple sightings. There was some that could have been abductions, but it was a lot of landings and sightings and up-close sightings and my sightings and the close ones I had and stuff like that. And telling the story of this town that was infested with these UFOs in 1975. So I read the story up, I tried to get it published. Nobody will publish the story. So I go, this sighting stuff's a waste of time. Just forget it, this is a waste of time. And all I was interested in then is trying to figure out who had the answer to what I had seen. Because nobody's interested in this book. So I gave the book to my sister, and she's kind of like the family hoarder historian, and she's got everything. So I give her the manuscript, and I say, you can hold this manuscript, put it in your manuscript thing. And I forgot I'd actually written it. 30 years later, she comes back, and she gives me the manuscript. Remember you wrote this thing? And I looked at it, and it was a black thing, and it was like an actual manuscript. I thought maybe I'd written a couple of chapters or something. I didn't realize I'd written the whole thing. And I was like, holy cow. So it was a time when digital optical scanning came in, where you could actually scan a typed out thing, and it will actually produce it in a computer form. So I'll scan the thing. So I scanned it and put the manuscript on just sort of in my collection, and forgot about it again. And then anytime someone would talk about, how I started and Charlie Redstar, I'd say, oh, I got this manuscript. You want to read it? I got the manuscript. And I would send the person the digital manuscript. They would read it. So I get a phone call from a woman named Teza Lawrence. She's a producer in Toronto, Canada, and she has a big studio that produces TV shows, a lot of kids' TV shows and stuff. And so she contacts me and she says, I heard you got this manuscript about this event that occurred in '75 in Carmen. I said, yeah. She says, can I read the manuscript? And I said, yeah, sure. So I sent her the manuscript. She contacts me back. She says, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And so she says, I want to produce this movie. And the movie is about Mission Rama. And it's like, whatever, who cares? So she wants to be Mission Rama, and it's a Peruvian story of contactees. So she said, I know what I want to do, because I tried to get it financed in Canada, and nobody would finance the movie because it's Peruvian. Who cares? We're in Canada. We don't care about Peruvian, whatever they're doing. So what she was going to do, she's going to take my manuscript, and she was going to started, the script would be, there's a reporter, that's me, the reporter goes to Carmen, he's looking at all these sightings and he's talking to people and whatever, and all of a sudden, he discovers missing Rama, and off to Peru he goes, and that's how she was going to finance the film. She was going to drag this Canadian component into the thing. So I was like, so she's paying her option $1,000 a year or whatever, so whatever, pay your option, do your stupid movie, whatever you're going to do. And she sent me the script. I never even read the script. I couldn't have cared less, because it really didn't have anything to do with it. So anyway, this has got to do with, so it's got to do with Mission Rama, Sixto Paz that we just interviewed yesterday. In fact, Teza said to me, "You're interviewing Sixto Paz?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to interview with him." And she said, "I've not even interviewed Sixto Paz." And she optioned his book for the movie and all this sort of stuff. Even I haven't talked to him. And so I said, "Yeah, we got this interview." But anyway, so she options this thing. She does the movie, the script. Well, she does the script. She does the teaser reel thing, and then she gets cancer. And then she sort of blames the manuscript and stuff. So she puts it on the shelf, but she wants the book published through a publisher, not self-published. She wants it through a publisher. And so I say, well, I sort of self-publish my stuff. I really don't like, being controlled by publishers and stuff. And she says, well, it has to, because we're going to release it at the same time the movie comes out. So I said, okay, whatever. So she goes to Dundurn Publishing in Toronto, and she negotiates this contract. So the contract comes to me, and I look at this thing, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, we get control. You have to give all your next book, you have to give to us at the same rate as you have this one. And it's like, and then the royalties are really low. They're always low. People think you make money. You make nothing on books. I didn't care about the money, but it was like, you're going to get my next book? Absolutely no way they're going to control me. And then they wanted the movie rights, but fortunately I'd already signed the movie rights with Teza, so they had to take that out. So then I let it lapse, and then Teza contacts me back, and she says, "Oh, what happened to the book?" I said, "I'm not signing that stupid thing. They're not going to control my life. I mean, there's no way." And she says, "You can negotiate, And I said, "Well, I don't negotiate. I mean, if it's there, I'm not an aggressive type person. I'm not going to go in there and say, I want you to change this and change that, and I'm getting a lawyer, and I didn't want to do that. So if it was there, I would have signed it. But I said, I just don't want to sign it." So then she goes back. She says, "Well, just stroke out what you don't want." And she negotiates for me. So she negotiates this thing, and the book is now in play. So she's going to do the movie. The book is now in play, and it took about 1.5 years for this book to come out. But anyway, she got cancer, so she pulls the movie, but the book is coming out. So the book comes out in August. And it's about Mission Rama. It's about these aliens from the planet Apu that are interacting with contactees in Peru. So we head down there, and it's still done what the movie's about. Really don't care. The movie's off the chart now. The book is out, and I tell the publicist, I say, I can't do any interviews. I'm going to California to this meditation thing. And he's just bizarre synchronicity. So I have no interest. What they're doing is Ricardo Gonzalez, he's into peace. So what they do is we destroy the world in Canada and the United States, and we just mess the whole thing up, and all these Latino people come from around the world. And they're coming from, a lot of Latinos in America, but they're coming from where they came from, Spain, and they're
Bolivia,
Uruguay, all over the place.
Costa
And
Rica.
they come to sit on Mount Shasta and meditate for world peace. And I just thought it was so weird. It's like, they're coming to save us, these Latino people, and they're going to meditate for world peace. So they were coming, and it's like, I meditate, so I have nothing against meditation. For world peace, nothing against world peace, but the last thing I wanted to do was go sit on the side of a mountain and meditate for world peace. But the other associate I have is from Los Angeles. She's she works for a law firm. She's a legal secretary. And she met me at Consciousness Life Expo, and she was interested in my stuff, and I got to know her or whatever. And so I was putting out books, and she would help edit my books, and she would put the books up and stuff. And she was really good. So anything I ever asked her to do, she would do. Never ever said, I can't do that, I don't want to do that, whatever. She just, whatever, okay, I'll try it, I'll do it. And so she said, oh, there's this Ricardo Gonzalez, and he's meditating for world peace, and this is the most magnificent thing, we all have to go. And she had already met Desta, so she with Desta, and she said, oh, we should go. And I'm thinking, well, I really don't want to do this. But I think, well, she's always done anything I have ever asked her to do, so I said, okay, we'll drive 40 hours to Mount Shasta, and we'll go sit on the side of a mountain, and we'll meditate for peace. Katerina wants to do it, so let's do it. So you got to remember, there's this movie that was now on the shelf about Planet Apu, and it has to do with my book, and they wanted to do the movie about it. So we start from Mount Shasta, and it's this long drive, day after day, and we're coming across the Nevada desert, and Desta's phone rings. And it's Katerina in Los Angeles. And of course, she's a legal secretary, so she reads this like she's a lawyer. She said, at 12:13, I got a message from Paula Harris, and the message is from Ricardo Gonzalez, and he has gotten a message from Antarel, the alien, from the planet Apu, which has to do with the movie. From the planet Apu, and Antarel knows that Grant's coming to the mountain, and he's to let people know. He's to notify. So I put on Facebook, I said, let's see what happens. Saturday night, there's going to be a planned encounter. I got a message from an alien, and we're heading there. And I remember we went, and so I said to Desta, we did this thing, back to Katerina, saying, what specifically did he say? Because I knew there was going to be like a bomb going off. Because I'm there, and now suddenly I've got a message from an alien, and it's like, what exactly is the message, Katerina? How does it worded? You know, and because people started to go after and say, it's not about the circus, it's about meditation. And that's where I came up with this idea. No, it is about the circus. I mean, Jesus Christ, I mean, if he hadn't done all the circus stuff, nobody would know who he is. They do the circus, they do the flyby, they do whatever, land in the forest, they do all this sort of stuff. It's like I say with Travis Walton. And I have a very different idea of Travis Walton. Everybody says, well, Travis Walton, he was gone for 5 days, and how Travis's theory is they may have killed him with this beam, but they beam everybody. That's how they bring everybody up. And they may have killed him, and then it took them 5 days to bring him back. And I say, no, I don't think so. It's like, what, did the tall gray go on strike? I mean, they had to wait for 5 days to do his operation or his whatever. I said, the reason it took Travis Walton is the circus. They said, this is one of the first abductions. So I say, let's keep it for 5 days. That'll really make headlines. And so they keep it for 5 days, and Travis Walton is every weekend, all year long. He's all over the world. He's the most famous contactee. If he had been taken for 15 minutes, you never would have heard of Travis Walton. It's this circus atmosphere. It's like the experience I tell, and they're trying to do this in Hollywood. The guy's name is Chris Blatzer. He's one of the most high-profile experiencers, abductees that there is. He lives in North Carolina. Big business guy, very religious. And he has this experience in 2007. I meet him in 2012. And I'm at the citizens hearing where Joe was sort of helping to run the thing. I leave citizens hearing. I'm going to Florida to Paula Harris, and he lives about 2 miles off the highway. And I'd met him at an event in Philadelphia. Very nice guy, and I thought, that's kind of a weird story, so I'll stop by, and I want to see, because he had this story about the burning tree, and this is the thing about the circus. So Warner Brothers comes in, they say it's going to be, Mel Gibson is interested in the story. They've heard about his story. Mel Gibson wants to play the roles of Chris Blatzer, and he's going to have Julia Roberts in the movie. He's going to throw $80 million. He said, well, bigger than the Passion of the Christ, and it's going to be a major movie. And so Chris is negotiating with them, but Chris won't let them have the end of he wants to control the end of the movie, how it ends. He doesn't want an evil alien movie. So this negotiation is going on, and there's these 2 scriptwriters who wrote for the movie Conjuring. Conjuring 1 and 2. Conjuring 1 made $600 million. So these 2 scriptwriters, their names Chad and Carrie Hayes, live next door to Mel Gibson or close to him, and whatever. So they say to Mel Gibson, or Mel Gibson says, tell Chris we need a message. We want to know whether to do the movie. He should talk to his guys and see if he can get a movie done, or we should do the movie. So Chris says, oh, okay, I'll see what I can do. And he sort of prays and whatever it is, whatever. Next night, it's been raining for 2 days in North Carolina. The next night, they're sitting in the house with him and his wife, look out the backyard, and his wife says, what's going on with the tree? And he said it looked like a bottle rocket coming up to the bottom of the tree. And so they walk out, and the tree starts on fire. And it's like one of these trees, where the branch breaks off, and there's a little hole where the squirrel puts his nuts and stuff like this, and there's this hole. And up the middle of the tree, it's burning. Now, this is a natural event. This does happen in forest fires. Someone sent me one from California. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, see, it happens all over the place. The thing was, it happened at a specific time. So he had this vision when he was on board the ship, when he was regressed. He had this vision about, oh my goodness, like this sort of end of the world thing. So he dug up his entire backyard. He'd taken the whole backyard out, put this massive garden in there. He had chicken coops. He's like ready for anything. We're gonna survive here. And so he had a hose out in the middle near this tree. So they take a hose and they stick the hose up, and the kids have got the iPad and they're filming this tree as it's burning away. And it had a UFO ring under it in 2008, a year after his event. And what had happened is the tree started to die. There was a tree that he was near. It's kind of a long story, but there was an alien that he had beside him when this event happened, and he's leaning on this tree trying to get his breath because he's running. And then also he looks around and this alien is there, 3 feet high, red goggles with these things going up and down on his goggles, like little wipers going up and down. And he's looking at this little alien and it's glowing, and he said, I could touch it. It was that close. And he's standing there and he looked at the alien and he said, okay, you got me. Because he was trying to capture it because the dog was picking this, the dog was chasing this thing through the bush. And anyway, so that tree that he was standing beside, that tree completely died. Just came down, all the branches fell off it. And this tree, the burning tree, the same thing started to happen. All the branches, and it was supposed to be a 150-foot high tree, and it was 150 feet. And all these branches started to break off this tree, and he figured it was going to die like the other tree. And it had this UFO ring under it a year after the event. So they've got this hose, and the fire is going up through the tree, and there's sections in the tree where the branches are broken off, and the fire was coming out the top of the tree like a volcano of these branches. So they're filming this, and they stick the hose up, and they manage to put the fire out. It is 9 o'clock at night. 11 o'clock at night, they, boom, tree's on fire again, and it's burning again, and they stick the hose up inside, and they wet it down, and they stop the fire again. And then the wife tells me at 3 o'clock in the morning, she's up, because she's going to university or whatever, so she's up in the middle of the night or whatever, and she looks out, and the tree's on fire again. So she goes out, and she says, I'm sticking this hose. She says, I'm thinking, this tree falls over, I'll be dead, nobody's even going to find me for half a day or whatever. So 3 times it burns. So then Chris tells Chad and Terry Hayes, they're script writers, he said, oh, we had this event last night where this tree kept starting on fire. And they said, okay, thank you, we're doing the movie. They go back to Mel Gibson, this is like the sign, and that's this idea of the circus. So anyway, go back to